So we got a Saturday discussion, I guess. I don't really like talking about this stuff, but I've read a lot about it. Brian's on his way, I guess. What up?
Busy week. Relocating to Nevada. Going through all the videos on your Saturn page. I'm done. I skipped some that weren't grabbing me, but I checked all of them. I probably watched 60% of them all the way through.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Well, cool. So what's standing out to you as a total mind fuck?
Well, I'm trying to because for me, the cool thing about religion, when you study it, especially these aspects of it, because when I met you, a lot of the stuff, all the conspiracy shit, Operation Paperclip, and then all the religious rabbit holes, the Pope and Pizzagate and all that shit. I've studied a lot of different stuff, but I never went down the Saturn rabbit hole ever. And so
me too. This is all new to me too. Also.
Yeah. So that's what caught my attention, dude. And I've been, like I said, I marathoned the videos on your wall. I was just absorbing the information. I mean, it got to the point where a lot of it was redundant, but I didn't care. And I'd listen to it again anyway. Because I want
from another perspective.
Yeah, from another perspective, and let that point sink in so that I can talk about it. Hey, what's up, Alex?
Yeah. Hey, what's up, Alex?
Hey.
Sorry, we were just derail. Oh no. We were just talking about he was asking me what's been standing out because Jim Bob's got this he's got his own little blog wall with a bunch of videos. I think I linked it to you a couple days ago or a week ago. And I've been indulging all of his Saturn videos. Gnarly. Yeah, it's just splattering the wall basically, but it's a place to collaborate all your thoughts. And so I've been going through all of his Saturn videos and Saturnic stuff, anything that I could find from a bunch of different people to get it from different angles and to find all the what's the word I'm looking for? The resonant points, the ones where everyone's talking about the same thing, boiling it down. And I've got kind of got a pretty good grasp on it now, but I'm beginning to realize this has been a game changer for me. You have certain periods of time in your life when something you study changes how you look at the whole fucking thing.
Yeah,
that this has been one of them. I'm convinced now that the Hebrews had a much stronger Saturnic connection that anybody's they're letting anybody onto. And that all of this, the Mecca was crazy, dude. Recognizing that the black cube, the counterclockwise walking around Mecca, all of that is basically Saturn worship. To realize that, and then the symbols, the flag of the Star of David, and then the Islamic flag, how both of those things are Saturnic. They come back to the planet Saturn, and how the biggest one for me was the Israel thing, Israel. To realize that Is is Isis, the moon, Ra, the sun god Ra. And Elohim, or other forms of Saturn. Israel literally means moon, sun, Saturn. That's the name. It's a mind fuck for me. I can't believe I'm unpacking that, and it makes me wonder if the planets did used to be closer and something happened and they've been we've been ejected. There's one theory that said that Earth used to be a moon of Saturn, and that's why all the Saturn worship existed in the first place.
Exactly. Yeah. Totally. Yeah.
So I don't fucking know anymore, but it's there. And one last thing, and then I'll shut up. So I was digging deep down a rabbit hole, and one of your videos on your wall was this dude that was showing the introduction to a book, The Cult of the Black Cube. And I don't know if you remember that specific book, but it's super obscure. You can't really find copies of it online to buy. People don't really have it. But I did find a PDF version after some serious digging, and I managed to download it. And I've only read 10 pages. But this dude's basically talking about legit dark occult war. This is some high level writing. His vocabulary is off the chain. And so I'm going to read this whole thing just to sort of absorb his perspective. I want to know, but this is high level shit that I've gotten myself into. I want to know what's up with this Saturnic organization that exists in Germany and all this other shit. It's a big deal to me. There's something going on here.
Hang on. Yeah. It's glitching out on my end. I don't know why. I'm using a really cheap laptop.
You're right.
I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. or
Okay.
actually, yeah. So that, yeah, I know the organization you're talking about. And I don't really want to talk about that, really, man. I mean, I do want
Really?
to talk about that, but well, if you really look into it, they're really they seem to be the actual kind of like queen bee of the hive, and it's just like
Yeah.
it's just chilling there in a building, you know. So it's like
It's like saying Voldemort.
yeah, it's like saying Voldemort. Yeah, you don't. It's like, oh god, do we really have to say Voldemort?
Well, we
That's how
can like just brushing on it, then that's fine. Like, I am interested in the Saturnic connection to Mormonism as well, but I'm just telling you what I've been studying lately, and I'm diving down this rabbit hole, man.
Yeah,
Alex?
This is so funny that this is. I thought you and I talked a lot in the past about Saturn worship, stuff like that. It may have been
Maybe we touched on it, but it didn't sink in the way that this journey has taken me on, like in the last week. Like, it's really, really unraveled in a way. Like, it's mind blowing to me now. Like, how did I miss this before?
Yeah, I had this whole sort of like eyes wide shut moment, like, oh my God, I'm in the belly of the beast moment a couple of years ago when I discovered a subreddit called Past Saturn's Rings, which is about that
Rings or
Saturnian
reigns?
Rings, RINGS.
As Saturn's
Rings. Yes.
Past
is
Saturn
the name
rings.
of this. Yes. And Nick Hinton did a lot of posting both on Twitter and Reddit, but then I guess he disappeared or who knows what happened. And concurrently, I'm learning about like the black cube, all this stuff. And then I'm looking at my corporate skyscraper, and my corporate skyscraper has elements of Saturn worship everywhere. Like it was, I mean, if it like, it's like a gay guy walking into like gay pride and seeing everyone wear rainbows and be like, oh, you're all gay. Like I see the telegraphing you're doing in a nonverbal way, right? Like kind of putting it there and being like out of the closet, but in an unspoken way. So it's been kind of a mindfuck to be like, oh, this seems to be a, for lack of a better word, cult or culture of the top. Like if you have money, if you have prestige, if you have power on this globe, you indulge this to some degree. And it was really weird for me to be in a powerful, very fancy skyscraper, see people ostensibly doing business, right? Which you think is completely secular, and somehow in some way, shape or form, worshiping this. You're just never going to look at hexagons the same way again.
No,
for sure.
I didn't know about Saturn's North or South Pole at all.
No, about the weird sort of like it's basically a 2D black cube. If you could take a black cube and make it 2D, it's a hexagon.
And that was a good point.
It's kind of wild.
And then the South Pole is a spiral. Like, I mean, the North Pole is the Star of David. It's all like, it's the, like you said, it's the cube. The South Pole is the all-seeing eye. Like, it's the South Pole is just as crazy as the North Pole, like just in a completely different way. The swirl, the spiral creates like dude, it just what I've been reading about it. And like again, putting all the little pieces together, like everything everybody's explained, it's like, bam, it paints a picture that is really, really hard to deny. And I mean, I just got to keep studying now because like, I want to get to the point where I can cohesively spit out this narrative myself and not miss a beat. You know what I mean?
Or don't even worry, reclaim these power elements instead of studying them and figuring out who has the power. Take them back, because I feel like we have a parasitic class that has taken a beautiful, divine astrological object, Saturn. There's some power to Saturn. It's beautiful, but it's co-opted. That's my opinion. I don't think I think the crew doing it is evil or has negative intention. I think they weaponize the immense power that this astrological body has for ill-gotten means. But I think you, me, Jim Bob, anyone watching, we are the ones we have the divine rights to it. We're like an heiress, and like someone tricked us and is like, oh, actually, you know, I have like Bruce Wayne, like Wayne Industries or something.
Oh,
Bruce Wayne is like,
exactly,
I'm the heir, not you.
Yeah. Cupid getting his wings clipped by Zeus. Is that what we are?
Probably,
That's Aries. I think, yeah.
Cupid got his wings clipped. You know, you mentioned Aries. is that like the god of war, or is that somebody else? Is that a different god that
No,
has a similar?
Eres.
Yeah, okay, that's different.
I believe. My memory is pretty good, but sometimes I get them wrong.
Dude, I can't believe how into astrology I'm getting. Like all that old mythology. Like when I was younger, it didn't really mean much to me because I was just like, yeah, well, that's just like old school bullshit. Like you grow up believing like it was just mythological bullshit that they believed back then to try to explain volcanoes and stars and earthquakes and the moon and the sun. But it's weird how like the older I get, looking back in retrospect, like my perspective's totally changed. I used to be completely on board with the idea that like, yeah, the Old Testament people, like they were unevolved, you know, God had to give them like lesser laws because they had to be brought up to speed gradually, like human beings have to evolve on their own. And now my opinion shifted to like, no, really, really ancient human beings were like super evolved. And then something came along and hijacked our DNA, crashed the whole system, like, you know, basically took over. And that's the whole reason why humans got all in the first place, was because of those people. It wasn't because we started off as like, I'm not saying apes don't exist, but I'm just suggesting that I do believe more and more now that we can't just blame, hey, human evolution. Like there's been conscious intelligence influence, might be Saturnic, that has been trying to dumb down our consciousness, keep us at a lower vibration. Like they're intentionally attempting to manufacture, you know, our condition. And they've been doing it for a damn long time.
And they've gotten away with it by way of our manufactured consent.
Right.
We have to say, yes, please. We're angelic beings cosplaying lowly livestock. And it's like bad sex role play that has like gotten out of hand, right? And we don't realize we can leave the dungeon. There's a safe word.
I was about to bring up safe words. Yeah, we forgot the safe word, you guys. Yeah, it's probably just something simple, like I don't consent to this, though, right? Like it's really just about taking back.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, I brought it up before. It's like in A Bug's Life, where the grasshoppers like are outnumbered by the ant, or by the, I think it's the ants. You know, like what, like 1,000 to 1. You know, and in the case of the elite, it's more like 10,000, 100,000 to 1. We vastly outnumber them, but they continue to control us. This tiny little group of people continues to control us because of their ability, their cunning, genius ability to manufacture consent. And the irony is, you know, and I'll be honest, because I have an ego. I study I'm not a devil, but I study that stuff because I want to know how my enemies think. I want, you know what I mean? Like you have to learn sword play to defend yourself with a sword. You know what I mean? Like even if you're never going to strike out at somebody, you have to know all the moves, right? So in studying the elites, like my conclusion is, if you're able to trick that many people all the time, constantly, just through like manufacturing everything, like all the narratives, all the news, all the wars, you know what I mean? You would probably feel entitled to the position that you're in. You're like, I'm smart, they're dumb, they deserve to be controlled, they can't figure it out. Like, I'm sure that would emerge out of the ego of those people. You know what I mean? And it's interesting because like human beings, like a lot of the elites probably think that's just our natural state, or maybe they've been taught or conditioned to, and their superiors don't tell them. Like the very, very top doesn't tell them that human beings could actually be a lot more if we weren't doing what we do. You know what I mean?
Fabulous point with that, because I think there's this, it's like a Russian nesting doll of, you always think you get to the top and then there's another level and you arrive at 33rd degree Scottish Rite Freemasonry and there's like still shit beyond that. Or maybe you're in the secret space program. Let's say that's true. I think it is, but who knows, right? I think we can feel it. And you have people in the secret space program who's like, oh, I am on the inside. I know the inner track. And they don't realize that there's yet another level.
Another layer and another layer, yeah. There's always another puppet master. But that's to the benefit of the puppet masters, to not, you know, to keep you in the dark like that. Yeah.
And also, anyone who like, I will see people on our conspiracy on Reddit and they'll be like, I want to join Freemasonry and then climb up the levels and see what the answers are. And I'm like, I think you're going on a side quest in the video game. I think you're going to invest in a lot of bullshit for years, get to like your level. And then it's like Scientology. You're like, okay, I paid all this money. What's the inside track? And they're like, have you heard of Thetans? And you're like, fucking really? I paid this money and this is it? Or Mormonism, right? You're one of the Marriotts and you're like, fucking, this is it? Second anointing? This sucks ass.
Oh, we should get into that at some point, actually.
We should. I mean, we all carry that same foundation, and it's a slightly different flavor of the same shit, right? Slightly different window dressing, but it's the same shit.
Okay, so real quick, I want to get into the second anointing now a little bit, but before I do, I don't want to derail too much. Jim, did you have anything to add to the previous comments?
Oh yeah, I noticed I turned my microphone off and it made it stop glitching. So you were talking about Saturn's kind of control over the society that we live in, and I just thinking about that. It's like it looks to me like the Bible. You know, there's instructions on how to treat your slaves in the Bible. You know, it's a slavery handbook for psychology and how to get people to basically do what you get in line and be in order and stuff like that.
Right.
So that's kind of what it is. And also in magic, which is kind of like I'm studying magic, but I'm not a magician. But what do? They like woo, summon spirits or whatever. And the whole point is to get the spirit to be bound by you. So it's the practice of binding spirits, and we are the spirits being bound by these spells, these big royal craft spells over the society that we're born into. So it's interesting for sure.
And all their mediums.
Yeah. There's so many directions we could go with everything, man.
So, Alex, you have a thought? Oh, did you mute your mic, Alex?
I did. Oops, I have a little vacuum going, a little robot vacuum.
You're good.
My house is fully automated and listening to me. Just right, my tits out in plain sight. Anyway, what my point was is like we do seem to be in a very contractual realm. You have all this like shit about like sell your soul to the music industry or sell your soul to the devil. I don't think that transaction is like legally valid as far as the cosmos is concerned. But as we unpack Mormonism, as we unpack the Saturnian cult, as we unpack all these power dynamics, I keep going back to who are the magicians in our realm right now? And my answer is not religious leaders, not this or that. I'd say lawyers. I think lawyers manipulate reality. Lawyers arrive to a situation and alchemize the situation or contort the world to serve their client's interests. And they get you to sign on the dotted line. And what's really funny is like when you're not legally conversant, you'll receive a cease and desist letter and you think it's the end of the world. But really, in a law firm, that's just like posturing. That's just like, oh, get them to fucking shut it down. And then our first step is this. And if they keep it, then it's this and this. So you'll notice a lot of people will sign an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement, or they'll sign a non-compete agreement. Those are really hard to enforce. But it's enough to get you to think that you can't go to that other employer. Does that make sense?
Right.
Like,
yeah,
it's
like
and you're like,
rolling.
Oh,
It's a no risk first attempt thing you can do to, like, there's the cost versus the gain. You know, it costs you what? You just got to write a letter. The gain is there's a 20% chance we'll be done right here. So we just always do this preliminarily in order to, I get it. Again, it's devilish, but that's what I mean. Like, you exist in that world for a while and you study those tactics because you don't want, they shan't be used against me is the point. I can see through virtually all of them. And I think the two of us can as well.
I was going to add, have you guys seen the film The Devil's Advocate with Keanu Reeves?
Long ass time ago, and I don't remember most of it except the titties at the end because I was a kid.
I think they even rented Donald Trump's penthouse or something to film that. But yeah, it's got Keanu Reeves and Al Pacino as the devil, and it's all about the law firms that run New York City. It's brilliant. It's definitely relevant to what's going on today. And it's a brilliant thing to watch right now and think about what's going on behind the scenes. And then also, I think that's probably the most relevant thing to chime in on with the legal wizardry stuff and how corrupt that really, and that really is Saturnic, I guess. But also the justice system itself is Jupiter justice. So that's the Melchizedek is Jupiter, Saturn combined.
That quote I just sent you,
So,
dude, like just like from Twin Peaks, the episode that I watched today, it said there is a time if Jupiter and Saturn meet, they will receive you. And it was about this guy trying to find the Black Lodge. Like that's literally like where Twin Peaks is going now. And like I said, it's full disclosure. They're talking about all that shit. So it's just funny you guys have mentioned like Jupiter and Saturn. I couldn't help but think of the quote, that I sent you guys.
Is that Jupiter Saturn conjunction when I think it's called Jabulon, maybe, or maybe my memory is not correct. But I did look up the Cupid Aries thing. It's not Aries, it's Eros, Eros. That's Cupid, and yeah, he got his wings clipped by Zeus, and that's us. So we're Cupid. That's interesting symbology for us as Exmos.
Yeah, it's funny. I've always resonated with the fallen angel. I've always liked the art. Angels like dressed in black, Gothic styles, black wings. I've never seen it as, when you're a kid, you see it as evil. And then you go through it, and it's no longer evil. It's more symbolic. Do you know what I mean? So I've resonated with that imagery for sure.
Well, I am of the opinion that we are seraphim. On this call, in this little cluster, I think we are seraphim embodied in human form. Which maybe I have an out of control ego. I don't know. I like to think it's the former, the latter. But
yeah, it's funny because like you really think it's strange because the Matrix kind of. You ever notice how the Matrix, like all the agents are dressed like missionaries or like businessmen or like lawyers, like all the and then all the good guys are like shrouded in black. And it's funny because back then I remember I had a few Mormon friends that were like, the Matrix is sort of like trying to flip the script because look, all the bad guys are in the suits and ties, but our prophets are in suits and ties. So they're trying to like twist it. You know what I mean? But now because I see the leadership the way that I do, I'm like, Agent Smith. Yeah, makes sense.
I wanted to add, we should definitely dive deep at some point, if not right now, into business suits and ties and symbology of this whole situation.
I'd love to.
I actually don't know that much about it, but I know that it's definitely the cultural symbol of the Mormon, right? And also the businessman. Yeah. And also it's very Saturnic. I actually have looked into that stuff before, and I can't say that I want to say that it does tie back to the Saturnic, and also is like a leash for the slave, So
yes,
very interesting for sure.
I will never wear one again, dude. Like when I left the church in like 2008, like regardless of the occasion, like if I have to wear a nice shirt, it'll be the color purple without a tie and the top button unbuttoned. Like I cannot, and the only way I go total formal it'd have to be like a tuxedo, like which has a different energy than the suit. It looks a little different. It's tighter on the skin. It's more elegant. It's not something that it's definitely it has the energy of play rather than the energy of business. Do you know what I mean? Like it's still formal, but it emanates playful energy of freedom rather than sort of the constrictive feeling of a suit. And everyone's different, but that's just my personal take. I'll never wear a suit again. I'll never wear a tie again. A tie in particular, like I'll maybe do a bow tie, but a long necktie, like I just absolutely refuse. I'll never put one on again.
I'm the opposite. I have 140 ties.
Some
cost hundreds of dollars. And
my gosh.
I got like for 30 cents in a Chilean street market. And I buy the most re-fucking-diculous ties. Like the 70s ties, it's basically like a clown bib. Like they're like this, like wide, right? Like not just like, hi, I'm a tie, but just like I'm a lobster.
See, I'm down with that.
Almost.
I'm down with that.
I like taking things and subverting them. Like, am I going to wear a leash? Well, it's going to be the fucking craziest leash you've seen. And I've had people, we had our law firm at 30 Rock in New York. So we were like above NBC, Fox News, they were clients. And I'm wearing insane ties that I paid 30 cents for. And people are like, oh, look at you. Ooh. And then, like all these like rich assholes are just like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I love this because I'm playing a side game. Like everybody has their game. Like you'll see women in a skyscraper. They all carry bags that are like $5,000, $7,000, and they're all playing this game. Like, who's got the Dooney and Burke bag? Mine is Louis Vuitton, and then they try to be like, who's got a fake one? And I could tell by the stitching and bit. And meanwhile, you just walk in with your just like, fuck you tie, and then people are like,
flamboyant.
What are you doing? What am I supposed to know about this? Should I know about this? What does he know? But then again, I also have gay privilege, where like, if anyone can do that, the gay guy can, you know? Like, I can
that's kind of true, but also you just own it. I think whatever the gay thing is that you have going on, like, it causes you to like own yourself quicker than a lot of other people. If you face it, you know, you're sort of forced to in society, and you just sort of own all of it. Like, you get to be yourself no matter what. And it doesn't fuck with your sexual life. That's the most important thing. With dudes, it's totally different, because being yourself is a conflict with your sexual life. It's totally different. With gay guys, it gets to be the same fucking thing. Congratulations.
Yeah.
But
like
yeah,
dogs in a kennel. Yeah.
Yeah, but because of
way. Like, that's not to
yeah, you don't have to play games. You don't have to play games. You don't have to put on like a certain, I don't want to say a front or facade, but it's kind of like that. Anyway, the point, this is just a digression. The point is you have learned how to own yourself, and it's owning yourself, really. That's the most important thing. People feel that. Like, you can walk into the room with that outrageous tie and, like you said, be subversive, but still turn it into happy joy. You spread it. It's contagious, you know, rather than be like, yeah, I wear this to rebel against the system. Fuck you. Because if you did that, people would be like, what the fuck is up his ass? You know what I mean? So it's a different approach, I think.
What the fuck's up his ass? Don't ask, don't tell.
Yeah, I kind of opened that can of worms.
Yeah, you kind of walked into, which is not what's up there. No, we're terrible kids.
Yeah, welcome to a little segment of what it's like on Cosmic Jesters, Jim. But
rated G. G as in good God. What the fuck? Anyway,
but no, I don't know. Like, business suits. I mean, you've sort of lived in that world. Like, I have no reason to. Like, I'm going to a wedding this October, and I'm thinking to myself, what the fuck am I going to wear? And I avoid weddings and I avoid funerals, but this is my sister's wedding. First wedding in like 8 years in the family, like with my siblings. So I got to figure something out, some way to like not compromise myself, but wear something. I'll take advice from you, I'm sure, Alex.
We'll figure it out. We'll have one of those 80s dressing montages where you like step out of the dressing room and I'm like, and then you keep stepping out. And then finally we're like, that's the one. And then it's like also just like 80s like music. Yeah, it'll be great.
Oh, man.
You'll look like shit, but we'll have fun making you look like shit.
I'm down, man. It sounds fun to me, honestly. So anyway, like, I don't know about the symbolic nature though. Like, I don't. All I know is that all the most scumbaggery people all wear the same kinds of suits. And that includes the politicians, another category we haven't mentioned yet. But it's all of them.
Yeah.
Anybody like this, I just associate the suit, that kind of suit, with all the people that I hate. So, like, I don't want to. It's just, I don't know. I look around. You know, help me change my mind, Alex. Like, you know, if the trend changed and more people got on board, I'd be down. I'm just not going to blaze that trail. I don't fucking care, is all I'm saying.
I was going to ask you guys, have you guys looked at Under the Banner of Heaven or Stay? You watched it, Alex?
I'm almost there.
Yeah, I told this dumbass down here to watch it. Are you? Brian?
I'm above you on my screen, but what?
Okay. Wherever Brian is, I told him to watch it, and he hasn't watched it yet. But yes, I have.
It's next in my queue.
Watched the whole thing. Yeah.
Okay, so Alex and Brian, if we did do a reaction video, I've been noticing they have like thousands of views.
To Under the Banner of Heaven?
Yeah, it's a heavy hitting series, man, about Mormon history. It's like shows a whole bunch of crazy shit. But I want to get a hold of the directors. I want to impress them and say, hey, look, I have 30,000 views on my reaction video. Why don't we do another series about Wilford Woodruff dying at the Bohemian Grove, bro?
Yo, you know, it's funny because
Woodruff went to Bohemian Grove.
You didn't know this, Alex. Me and Jim kind of had a moment over this, actually, because he was like, okay, Wilford Woodruff. And I was like, I think I know where you're going with this. And Jim was like, tell me. And I said Bohemian Grove. And he was like, yeah. And that was one of the moments I was like, oh, me and this guy are very much on the same page. So, but yeah, Jim, please, you probably know more about like the details than I do, because I just discovered this like 2 months ago, actually 3 months ago, maybe.
Yeah, I discovered it about 5 years ago because I was just looking at everybody. I was taking one by one anything I could find on these people to really get to know them. I was like, this is a crime scene investigation at this point. I'm like, I'm going forensic on this shit. So I went into Wilford Woodruff, and I just heard in passing, he's got a bunch of crazy shit about him, but I heard in passing that he went to the Bohemian Grove. I was like, no, no, really? And then he died.
Seriously, died shortly after.
Basically, just like right then. And I looked all into it. I looked at the history all around what they were doing. The church was looking at a loan with the Rothschilds. Through the canons were brokering the loan. But anyways, Wilford Woodruff was like the one saying no, I guess. And
really, he was actually against it.
Yeah, he was against. I guess it was selling out the soul of the church or the independence of the church or something like that. There was something, I forget exactly, but you can look at they meticulously kept all the records the church did. So like they kept minutes of every meeting. So you can go back in the church history itself and just look at what they were doing day by day in the meetings. And they talk about what they're doing. That's where I found out about a lot of stuff about the finances going on with Lorenzo Snow, who took over after Wilford Woodruff died. But yeah, they went to the Bohemian Grove, and he was voted. He was the keynote speaker of the event. Whoops. And he was voted smartest of the party. They I guess they were like flattering him, or I don't know what that was, but they voted him smartest of the party. I know that, which is just kind of funny because if you really know Wilford Woodruff, he's kind of a numbskull. If you read about really the things that he said, some of them. The lies that he told. It's just like, why would you tell that lie, bro?
He wasn't as sharp as Young and Smith.
Yeah.
So
he was kind of like the third in line, kind of like.
What was
that?
That
was like a sarcastic appeal to his vanity, like calling him the smartest man at the party. It was kind of like
knowing the Grove. Who knows, man? Like,
that's just what I thought as like a psychic. Clairvoyant forensic investigator, kind of with my own little TV show that I live in my own mind, you know. But so anyways, yeah, so he drops dead basically. But who accompanied Wilford Woodruff? This is interesting. It was Hiram Clausen and Frank Cannon. Frank Cannon was one of the Q of 12, and Frank Clausen was the architect of the Salt Lake City Temple. So, and Clausen's son is on the rolls of the Bohemian Grove. So this is not just a one-time, hey, we're just going to pop in on the Bohemian Grove. Their families were all members, and they started a Bohemian Grove chapter in Salt Lake City. So there's a Bohemian Club in Salt Lake City. Same people, I guess, and they that's what Quinn's book is all about. With the kind of like the underground. Yeah. Anyways, I just covered a lot of
detail I didn't know.
Yeah.
The way I heard it was, and maybe I'm botching the details, but I thought Wilford Woodruff went there to ask Bohemian Grove to borrow money. Maybe that's what it was. Maybe that was the surface detail and under the surface. But yeah, the detail that he did visit Bohemian Grove. And then very shortly thereafter, I think we're talking like less than a month, he was dead. So there was some real bizarre thing going on.
It was on the same trip. It was within days. It was on the same trip. He was very old though. I think he was like 89 or 93 or something, but it was on the same trip. I know that.
Well, I'm going to check as you say that. I am going to look up his age, but because
what year did he pass? Because travel.
I got another little juicy detail.
Just off the top of my head, I want to say 1898 is whenever Wilford Woodruff passed, and that's a funny thing.
Sounds about right.
1898, because all right, Lorenzo Snow. I looked all into this, guys. This is a whole movie series of what's really going on here? There's a deep conspiracy. So Lorenzo Snow took over, and he's got this fabulous story of Jesus visiting him and telling him to take this loan and shit. Oh man, and like he's like on a platform of gold. It was marvelous, he tells his granddaughter, and it's like makes the publications, you know, it becomes like part of the rumor mill that like Lorenzo Snow saw Jesus and they did this beautiful thing. And meanwhile, some really interesting like side lore, like some Indian tribes nearby at some point had like their own like crazy ass like second coming in their own tribes at the same time Lorenzo Snow was doing this. It just seemed like some Rudolf Steiner kind of esque kind of psychology. I don't know. I shouldn't bring all that stuff up, but I just thought it was interesting. Like that was going on, and it was like a big deal to people. This is like 1900, 1902. So,
yeah, and I think then it was a lot easier to like have someone inconveniently pass away and have a flimsy excuse as to how they passed away. Back then, like I think it was.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it was much easier, which may account for the murder of Joseph Smith too. Like, I mean, come on, black mob, face painted black. Like for all you know, it was a bunch of insiders that killed him. Anyway, but I don't know a lot about John Taylor, Wilford Woodruff, Lorenzo Snow, any of the middle prophets for me. But I do know specifically that once Heber J. Grant got involved, he was like the real business-minded, like hardcore business tycoon type leader. And I don't recall all the changes that happened under his leadership, but I know that it's interesting how like, the church always took a slight different direction depending on like who was, leading it basically. Like, look at the church under Nelson now versus the church under Gordon B. Hinckley. Do you know what I mean? Like such a different feeling.
Can I say something about Heber J. Grant?
Yeah.
There's a really excellent presentation done by some Mormon somewhere that maybe is disaffected now or something, but he did a really great presentation. It's on YouTube. It's called Lukewarm Mormon, and it's like, man, his theories. He like looks up all this history and just shows you all the text with his camera and stuff while he takes you through it. And he shows how like since Heber J. Grant, I guess they sabotaged the protocol of the true Melchizedek priesthood like lineage. And so since Heber J. Grant, nobody's actually gotten the Melchizedek priesthood. They supposedly, but this guy's presentation is fantastic, and he's really just reading a whole bunch of quotes of different people like Brigham Young, Joseph. His whole presentation, Lukewarm Mormon. I have to just mention that as being like excellent, and it does get into Heber J. Grant and the kind of like the dilution of the priesthood or something. So
Lukewarm Mormon.
Wow.
Yeah, I know exactly the irony and sarcasm that he was going with that, because like Jesus says in the Bible, like I will spew you out if you're lukewarm. And so it's sort of kind of that joke. That joke is like, look, here I am, can't help it. What you gonna do about it? Like I appreciate the name. I already know the angle. It's great.
Yeah, man. Mormons are great, man. Mormons are sincere. They're just people that somebody knocked on their door and said, we have a message from God. It's urgent. It's about your salvation. And you're like, it's just good people that are Americans. They're like, whoa, what? Oh, dude, I was thinking about doing a whole video, like just showing from the ABCs getting brainwashed by the church and that experience. Cause that's a fucking trippy experience. A, B, C, D, Jesus died for your sins. Like, what? My hero's dead because of me? Like, part of your programming. Like, that's the first thing you learn, that's the first, like, oh, that's what everybody looks to. And then that's the words that comes out of that guy's mouth. It's like,
yeah,
his blood saves us. And so it's just like, what? Like, why? Like, that was my question my entire life since I was a little kid. I was like, what does that even mean? If I kill this bunny, it's going to save something. If I'm going to, what does that even mean? It just seems barbaric and like from some chaos barbaric matrix that's like, from like 7,000 years ago or some shit.
This is getting me thinking right now in this moment as you're saying this. Like I'm putting together a thought that I've never really quite thought of this way before. But like even modern day rituals, like the sacrament, the Mormon sacrament being the best example, is basically like the whole story of Christ. There's an element of like vampirism, blood consumption, life for life in it. I mean,
cannibalism.
Oh yeah, I mean, like obviously people would say, well, it's symbolic, I sacrifice my body and blood for you, and my mind is thinking like, yeah, but there's a duality there that like can still exist, and like anybody that created these rituals wanted to continue blood sacrifice, but couldn't do it literally because of the times in the air, but they still want people to like be involved in that kind of energy. You create this sort of dualistic, ambiguous symbolism. Whereas you can claim, well, it's symbolic, body and blood, but then every day you pray and say that they may eat like in remembrance of the body. Like, so you're supposed to think of the body as you eat. You're supposed to think of his blood as you drink the water. You're literally invoking images of blood as you drink water. Like, it's a way to project the symbolic form of this ritual onto masses of people, because you can't. They're too evolved now to do it literally, but I think it keeps them in this stasis. Again, I'm just spitballing here, but there's something about it that feels insidious to me now rather than benevolent as I look at it.
And I notice this specific ritual is everywhere. Mormons have their bread and water. Catholics have this. They sometimes call it
Communion?
The Eucharist. Well, communion is like your first one, right? I guess you do take communion. Is communion and Eucharist interchangeable? Let's find out.
That's a great question. I'm going to grab some water while you're looking that up. I'll be right back.
Sure. But Catholics, they believe in transubstantiation. I don't know if Brian can hear me while he's out, but transubstantiation means that, like, when you take your wafer and you take that sip of wine, it becomes real. As you chew it, it's really the flesh of Christ. As you drink it, it's really the blood of Christ. It turns into that in your body. So in some weird way, you consented through manufactured consent to cannibalism of your supposed deity, which, by the way, I think it's amazing that in Atlantis and Greece and other cultures, gods are these like powerful, manly archetypes, and you're supposed to like want to be them. And then this cabal takes out the God that we ostensibly worship, Christ, or the Christ figure, because we all are obsessed with the Christ figure. Like, there's something to him, fucking love him. And they're like, all right, fine. I put him on the wall and made him bloody and beat and sorrowful. And, who's your God now? It's almost mocking.
Yeah, it's like, hey, by the way, you were born to a conquered people. Look at your people. They're all worshiping their conqueror, basically, as they're like accepting their deepest soul abuse by looking and accepting it. And that's like you were talking about the legal implications, because Mormons are very legal. My dad's a lawyer. I grew up in BYU Law School. They're there, and then a lot of Anyways, so let's talk about the legal implications of this whole thing. So it's a contract, and what is it saying? I accept Jesus Christ as the Son of God. Hey, that sounds good. That sounds great, because
nice, yeah.
everybody loves Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
But what's the catch? Any contract, you want to look for what's the catch? Is there a catch?
The devil's in the details.
The devil's in the details. My mom would always say, watch out for the devil. He'll tell you 99 truths just to get in one little lie.
I heard that too.
It'll be a big lie, she'll always say. And that's exactly what she's in. So she's taking this whole society in and not realizing what's the catch. What's the catch? And this is the catch. You're accepting the Father of Jesus, who you don't really know. They don't talk about. It's kind of an elusive character. You're accepting the Father of Jesus as God. So if you're accepting Jesus, you're accepting his Father as God. And the Pope himself talks about, the Father of Jesus is Satan or Lucifer, which is I guess to them is a harmonic of Saturn. Venus is a harmonic of Saturn. But they basically openly say they have hymns to Lucifer in the Catholic Church, but they're being forthright about it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, whenever you look in the details, so it looks to me like Jesus was like a rebrand of Yahweh, which nobody liked because he was commanding people to sacrifice their children for a long time, and then still involved with all that crap. They needed the rebrand, so it seems like the Caesars took Pythagoreanism, Pythagoras culture, which kind of comes through Dionysus. This is just my own thoughts. Comes through Dionysus, Bacchus, and Ophiuchus. That the white robes, you can think of white robes and kind of this purity fasting, stuff like that. The Greek philosophers,
Pythagoras, actually.
Yeah,
I do.
The first Freemason.
I'll come back to that in a sec, actually. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, Pythagoras is the first Freemason, but he's the same lineage as Jesus. They're the kind of the same kinds of people with the white robes, and they share lineages and stuff. So, but yeah, I forget where I was going with that thought, but yeah, if you have something to say about Pythagoras, I mean that is, he says. They say that he was the first Freemason, and he has a lot to do with a lot of their symbology and and stuff, but we can get into that later. It's kind of, I'm not really prepared to get into it.
Yeah, I mean, just real quick while you gather your thoughts. There's this old Disney video called Donald Duck in Mathmagic Land, and I don't know if either of you have ever seen it, but I love that video. Like, and I went back and watched it actually a couple of months ago, and I was sort of blown away by like how deep it was. I mean, they lay out secret societies, and you know how Pythagoras was like a part of the first one. The pentagram on the hand right here was the symbol. And when you think about it, like the pentagram as a symbol, there's a reason why the inverted pentagram is usually the symbol of evil, is because the pentagram itself isn't a negative thing. There's tons of universal truths, kind of like the Fibonacci spiral. The pentagram itself has a lot of.
That's the first thing that you like to draw. It's the first thing that's fun to draw. You're like, oh, wow.
I agree. I doodle pentagrams so much. Yeah.
It's like, hey, that's fun. And then they make it, you know, they invert that to be like, oh, what's not fun? Even like, dude, I was part of a Freemason ceremony for like, they were like recognizing exceptional firefighters at this military base that I was working on. Mm-hmm. And my captain got selected and his wife couldn't go. So I was his like number one dude. So he's like, why don't you come with me, brother John? He was just messing around, like, because they call each other brother. And this is a Yaqui Native American dude that I'm like supporting. So I'm going into this crazy ass Freemason temple for this ceremony. We're in our fire gear, or not gear, but uniforms. And and we man, there's that ominous throne for the Grand Master sitting there. And then right above it, like, there's the upside down pointed star of like, I'm just like, what the fuck?
Shit.
Like, this is like a satanic temple. Holy shit. That was like, that was the same lodge as John Steinbeck. Like, I looked at John Steinbeck signatures and some books and stuff. It was interesting, but I was just like, wow, that's like, who knew that? Like, and if you really look into Manly P. Hall and all the lore of Freemasonry, that really is whenever you realize that those guys are all classically trained. They understand, like Thomas Paine.
They are sharp, intelligent individuals, no doubt.
They're sharp, yeah,
no doubt. Alex, did you have something?
And just notice that, like, once you see, you know, that inverted pentagram as sort of symbology with the what is it, like, free and sovereign order or something, drive across the country, go into any town. Locally, I have a town 20 miles away, and every time we cross into town limits, there's a big sign, and the sign has all the little like Rotary Club and and then you have this like big ass pentagram with occult imagery. And I just think that's so funny that, like, in America, we have it on our money. We have it on our cute little mundane signs as we go into town because we're going to Costco. And it's just kind of this, like, we're surrounded by runes and sigils and this and that, and it's kind of hidden in plain sight. Years ago, I went to Temple Square. I went with my lesbian girlfriend. She and I were best friends. She's like a lipstick lesbian, right? So, you know, all girly and passable. And then I'm just kind of like, hi. So it was a little bit like people would pull her aside and be like, do you think your boyfriend's gay? And she's like, no, he's a great kisser. And then, but we were like closeted at BYU. So her parents were super rich. They take us to lunch or brunch at the Joseph Smith Memorial Building. And then my girlfriend and I walk around Temple Square holding hands. And we come up to a tour, and the sister missionary is doing the tour. And we're kind of snickering. And I mean, on the down low, we're like laughing at Mormonism and shit. And then she points at the temple and she's like, you'll see all these like inverted stars all over the outside of the Salt Lake Temple. And those, sometimes people say those are pentagrams, but what they are is like they're stars for the celestial kingdom. Yay, moving on. And then,
but they're still like, upside down.
I'm like, that's a lot of fucking pentagrams. And then you look at the Republican Party elephant.
Oh, with the stars on them?
Pentagrams.
Yeah,
the stars are inverted. And so
the stars like, inverted?
They are inverted.
Oh shit!
And weirdly,
just the small little things always in front of us.
I would like to share a theory. I mean, this is, guys, if we go too far down the rabbit hole, it gets kind of like, whoa, fuck.
That's the place we like, though.
Okay, well, I have a theory that Donald Trump is a MAGA or a warlock. his whole theme is MAGA. And who did he appoint was Azar, Han, and Redfield, and those guys just look like warlocks, all of them, and they did a bunch of crazy shit. Like, I mean, if you look deep, they're just like, well, those guys are probably warlocks in a secret society. But
I wouldn't be surprised. These days, I'll believe anything, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't know, but
doesn't mean I believe everything. It's just that, if that's
sure.
a thing, prove it. Sure, okay, yeah, whatever.
Sure. It's just a hunch. That's just a hunch. I don't want to start any rumors for Donald Trump. But I think he's got a great PR team protecting him, so I don't think he's got anything to worry about. They're going to throw out some more distractive bullshit while they continue their illusions. And what could we do, man? They're exploiting that. They're really exploiting. They find that it works. They can trick everybody. And they're exploiting it like motherfuckers. And still, I mean, when's it going to stop? I don't know.
Once we become more awake and aware of their shit.
Yeah.
Real quick before we get too far off the topic of pentagrams, the last thing that I wanted to add, actually the main point of bringing up Pythagoras was just to say, like, really studying him a little bit and then rewatching Donald in Math Magic Land helped me realize that the reason why the symbol of the pentagram is invoked, the reason why this magic works for them, is because they're basically incorporating universal math, which has power. Which apparently has power is the point. Like, who'd have thought? Like, math really is a religion. It's like the ultimate religion when you strip everything else away. Like, it's specific combinations of numbers, specific combinations of shapes. The pentagram invokes a magic for some reason that just 4 lines drawn in random order will not. It's because of its symmetry and its geometry, and the pentagram itself has both the golden ratio embedded into it in a magical way, but also the golden rectangle. And these shows lay this all out, that it really is magic. Like, mathematics is like the highest level wizards and warlocks and people that they understand mathematics, because geometry numbers are used to invoke so much, and it changes the nature of the spells you're trying to cast. Benevolent, malevolent, gray, or like different emotions. It all seems to come back somehow to numbers and shapes.
Yeah. I mean, that's what constitutes everything in this holographic. I call it a holographic realm. There's malleability. There's pixels to some degree. We seem to shape it, and it's video game like. But yeah, shapes and numbers are sort of the base of everything. It's the universal language. So if I can control your perception of that universal language, I control you. You get what I mean? So that's how I look at it. Go for it, Jim Bob. You look like you got gears going.
You got something.
I want to hear what's
yeah. I kept trying to figure out how I could word this, but the caduceus has the 2 serpents, right? That's and I think that's a good representation of like something like matter, antimatter, or something like that, or plus minus this duality force of the universe. So I was thinking, if you're a societal social engineer or something, if you're going to create something, you need to create an opposing force to it. And there's also an element of that in sustainable agriculture, because you want, like, say you have too many of something. Well, you just introduce a different species of something else, and it kind of like competes with it, and kind of they balance each other out. So good and evil could be maybe seen like that. And the ultimate highest, like Brian, we're talking about the Saturnia clubs at the very top. Yeah. They might not be good or evil, but they're just sustainably trying to steer the sustainable agriculture concept of the caduceus, which is just having the good and evil, and you basically, because I've read balance,
basically
to maintain a balance, of some regard, and also basically you're curating in some way for the magnet to exist and to create basically Dante's Inferno or whatever is reality. So the highest level magicians, they might only allow the highest level of evil in some crazy ass understanding that I don't have myself, but I was thinking maybe they do have this understanding. Like they say, King Solomon like I was hitchhiking when I was a young man, and the guy that picked me up said, "All my life I prayed for the wisdom of King Solomon." And I was like, "Really? Did you ever get the wisdom of King Solomon?" And he's like, "Oh yeah." I was like, well, what is it? Tell me. Give me the shortcut. Give me the Cliff's Notes. He's just like driving. It's like the wisdom of King Solomon is something about he not only employed the angels but also the demons. He somehow was in this balance of like angels and demons in the middle of this kind of thing, and you think like, oh, he's a prophet in the Bible. He probably just has he's only friends with angels. But if you actually look at what he was curating all sorts of abominable. I mean, I say that that's what it is. Like, so King Solomon's an interesting one. Like what he was curating.
I wonder about that a lot, actually. Like, obviously, like, you know, our old friend Will, he wouldn't like that idea very much. But yeah, this idea that there's just some sort of balance that can be struck between the angel and the devil on your shoulder, you know. And for me, what it ultimately all comes down to is I don't care how you word it, angels, devils. What I've learned is that it is through a lot, you know, a good balance of selflessness that you can obtain what you want selfishly without ultimately stepping on anybody else's toes. Like, and just, again, this for me, and this works for me. Everyone kind of does it differently. Some people follow their heart. For me, it's like purely mathematical. It's like, okay, what's the best way to maximize getting what I want? What's literally the best way to maximize getting what I really want? Like what, and that includes peace of mind. That includes, you know, material wealth. That includes good relationships with friends and family. That includes, you know, women at some point. Right now, I don't care. But all of these things, like simultaneously, you know, the things that are selfish included. And I really think that you just, like, this is what wisdom is. Wisdom is literally just evolving to the point where you realize to get what you want means that you do things with a specific modus operandi, so that it doesn't come back to bite you later. You could be evil to your core. Like, who the fuck knows? Like, maybe the origin of my soul is demonic. Like, I don't know, but it doesn't matter. Angelic, demonic, it doesn't really matter once you realize the mathematical truth. And again, that's just my artistic way of looking at it, but it still works. It's still true. You follow a certain formula, you walk a certain pattern, and you balance your selfishness and your selflessness, and ultimately nobody really gets upset at you for taking what you want. You've earned it, basically, in a sense. So a lot of people, I think a lot of the elites in this world have never fucking had, you know, that lesson sink in. You know, they're walking around probably every day, like worrying somewhere in the recesses of their minds about eventually getting caught. And that would be like, to have that there, you know, that's the deal with the devil. Like, it's always there. It's always looming over you. Someday at some point, whether in death or in life, you know, the devil comes for his due. And I just feel like no matter how much you obtain, no matter how much power and wealth you had, it would just ruin the whole fucking experience for me immediately. Like, I wouldn't be able to enjoy 1 cent, 1 whit of any of it because of that feeling getting in my goddamn way. So I had to,
but
you know,
yeah.
What?
But doesn't that make it the most delicious type of hell? Like, congratulations, I've given you like all these riches and all that fame you asked for, and you're sitting in the middle of it, but you can enjoy it. And you know, like, it was gotten through ill-gotten means. It can fall apart at any time. I'm lording blackmail over you.
I have to suck dick, and as a straight dude, I have to suck dick once every 2 weeks to my superior. You know, I have to wear, like, have you seen that picture of Bill Clinton in the dress with his legs crossed and the high heels? Like, that somebody painted. That was in the painting.
Yeah.
That's basically their way of saying, don't forget who owns you. You can do all of this shit. Like, they give you power to do all of this shit, and then you have to come back and suck somebody's dick, somebody's superior, you know, stuff your face in their pussy or whatever. Like, you know, even though if they're 85 years old, like, they remind you who you sold your soul to. And then you get to go out and play and subordinate other people, but ultimately they call you back on their leash. And fuck that, man. Like, it would ruin the whole, like, freedom. Like, I'm about freedom. That's, you know what I mean? Like, I don't need all that shit. So
I noticed the tie, noticed the tether. Like, I had a legal secretary who pulled me aside and said, you like law firms because they're just like Mormonism, just without the Jesus. And I'm like, fuck, God damn it, you're right. Like, I get law firms because I'm like, it's literally Mormon bullshit Mormon hierarchy. These two 70s are quarreling and boo, 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 boo. What does the correlations department say? Boo, 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 boo. And
Yeah.
notice that like politics, entertainment, business circles, high areas of academia, the medical establishment, it's very hierarchical. You are certified by one governing body, and that governing body can like rip it away from you at any time, and you have to give fealty to it. So all these Saturnian groups that have power and wealth and prominence in our realm rely on this very you're like, here you are a puppet, I am your handler, you have to do this thing for me and I dangle this over you bullshit. I shouldn't say it like that because I'm not that. I was subjected to that in a previous life, but not this one. Got dangerously close in this one.
But you're right.
Didn't take the bait.
No, but you're right about you're totally right about just the hierarchy and the structure. Like it exists basically in any institution, virtually any institution that has more than 1,000 members, once you get to that certain level of growth. And among the elites, it's the same thing. Like, in fact, to invoke the use of the word elite is to basically invoke a power structure where people are simply content, even though they're being controlled. They get to control a lot more people than they're controlled by. And that, for most people, I think, seems to be the kicker. It's like, well, I get to be an elite. I get to have control over tens of millions, I have to suck, I have to suck up to like these 10, 20, 30 people or whatever. But it's better than being in the middle somewhere, being at the bottom somewhere, because they just see it as a big pecking order and they'd rather get as high up as they can.
Speaking of elite, have you guys checked out Jordan Maxwell's stuff on L and elite angels?
A year ago, a little bit. I don't know if it was Jordan Maxwell, but I've heard this theory.
Yeah. You have, elder. What do you think, elder so-and-so? Elder, it's, and also the Spanish language, like anything with the masculine side is L. And that's, my buddy was talking about how, the Spanish language was actually invented for the church because it's like its own, I don't know, something like that. Because old time El was God. Elohim translates to children of El. So
right, plural.
That
I know from Joseph Smith.
Yeah, ultimately El was just referred to as like the supreme God, but from ancient history, the supreme God was Saturn. And that's like going into the Canaanite way prehistory of, so that's El. But
is there a planet associated with Atlantis? Because I've also heard theories that El was the ruler of Atlantis too. Like that's a whole other rabbit hole I went down. And so I'm just curious if there's any planetary associations with Atlantis.
I think Sirius and Orion.
Those are star systems, right? Stars.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're stars in the sky, not necessarily planets within our
celestial bodies still.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah. we have okay. So pre-Orion was Osiris. Osiris got scrubbed, kind of like China got scrubbed. China might be Osiris. Actually, I don't even know, because ancient China was super powerful. They were like, that's where we got all of our stuff from. Like even Freemasonry, I think, comes from ancient China. Yes, because if you look at the old Chinese rulers were always depicted. And I think they were snake people too. I think they were Naga. Wow, that's super interesting now revisiting this. I think they might be Naga snake people, but what do they have in their hands? One of them has a compass and the other one has a square. And all the old paintings of
I did not know that.
I think it's Fuxi. It's like 3,000 or 4,000 years old or something. But the old rulers had the compass and the square. So I was looking at that like, I wonder if there's a connection. But yeah, then you get into the
hole. Oh, yeah, I need to explore that rabbit hole. Sorry, I have my cat here. But you're saying the most interesting thing while I have, like, my cat freaking out.
Let's go.
So maybe she's freaking out on purpose. How do I flip this? Hello.
What's up, Joan?
I didn't mean to distract, but...
Hey, Joan.
So you're saying... I keep dealing with this, like, oh, she just wants to leave. Where do you want to go? Ah, fuck her. Anyway, but Saturn seems to wait, shit, what was I? Shit, I've lost the plot. My cat distracted me, and I
We'll
distracted you
we'll
with my cat.
we'll bring the plot back in a second. But one thing that I can add real quick, at least, is that this rabbit hole, like all the things that Jim's talking about now, like the origins of China, like connected to masonry and stuff. I just feel like the more you study, it's like the wider and the wider the rabbit hole gets. Like when you first find the rabbit hole, you almost really have to trip and stumble down it because you kind of don't see it. But it's like it gets to the point where it's just this big gaping hole, and you're just like, oh, there it is, plain as visible as day. Like it's no longer like a secret or like something you got to go hide. Like the rabbit hole swallowed up the whole fucking woods now, and I can see it from like it's a canyon at this point. Like I can just, I don't know, like it's, and there's so much inside of it. Like it's crazy. Like, but the craziest part is how I feel like more and more lately, it's all starting to come together. Like I'm starting to like trace, because coming back to this whole Saturnic connection, it's like, okay, this is more or less like the source of it all. Like you can't, like we've circled back to celestial bodies, which are just right there in the sky. They're tangible. There's something happening right here. Like, it's not mythological. Like things that are mythological all seem to be based on something, right? What is that something we've been searching for? It's the shit up in the sky right above us. It's the sun, it's the moon, it's the stars. Like all the original people like had it right. Like we're overcomplicating it. It's sun worship, it's moon worship, it's planetary worship, celestial body worship, stars worship, and the energies that emanate from those things. Like more than anything else, it's all right up there. Like yeah. It's not invisible heaven somewhere. No, it's all this. It's the celestial bodies. Like it all comes back to how the ancients saw it and the relationships that they had with that. Perhaps we were in a different location relative to those in the past. Like I said, I don't know, but we don't have to overcomplicate it with like other dimensions and energy pouring it. Like that stuff may exist, but I think most of it's just in our own front yard. Like really, and so now that that's sort of clicked, it's changing how I approach this whole damn game. It's like, oh, all the myths, just look at it. You got the Greek mythology, and then you've got the Romans who like copied the Greeks, but like they named their planets with the words that we use in modern English, Jupiter, Uranus, Venus. And then you look at the days of the week, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, like every single day. Sunday is obviously sun. You got Moon Day. Tuesday is Mars, I believe. Wednesday is Mercury. Thursday, I think Thursday is Jupiter. Friday being Venus. And then Saturday is Saturn. I mean, it's all planetary. It's literally everything around us. It's really simplified, like this rabbit hole. Like it's all coming back to the planets, the stars, the sun, and the moon. It's really simple.
Notice how we just don't, they're here and we don't think about them. Like I just
exactly.
think in Latin culture, you would have Walter, or what's his name? Well, not Walter Mercado. The magical sort of like he was an icon of TV throughout like Central and South America, and he did the daily horoscope, and he'd be like, this planetary sign, this planetary sign, this planetary sign. And it's so funny, we have a friend that I introduced Brian to, a shaman, and he can, and lots of people can do this, he can look at anyone's birth chart and immediately glean information, like reading a farmer's almanac. I think he even said something like, if you were a bottle of wine, if Brian is a bottle of wine that we could drink, not like in a Eucharist or sacrament way, but just like you could get like, oh, there's flavor notes, right? Like, oh, this vintage is like this because that year the grapes had a frost and blah, blah, blah. And you can divine that from the aspects of Brian's chart when Brian popped out his mom's vag. And similarly with me, with my birth moment, there's a place and time where I entered this hologram and I'm ready to play with my video game avatar. And that natal chart says shit. When Brian and I decided to hold Cosmic Jesters together, that's an intangible organization, right? It's a media venture, but that media venture has a natal chart. We turned it, we flipped on the switch one day, and that's its birth date. And you can almost do a birth chart on an organization, an initiative, It's crazy. And it really like, it's either one or the other. And it took me the longest time because I would read a horoscope in a newspaper. I'm like, this is bullshit. You're all dumb. This is bullshit. But then I had someone read me for filth with a natal chart. And I'm like, holy fuck. It's either there's something here or it's bullshit. And there cannot be any between. And if there's something here, then the transits of the planets and their positions relative to the mood and energetics happening down on our terrestrial terra firma, there's some connection there, some butterfly effect. We are subject to cosmic weather. You know, the Schumann resonance spikes. It's been going crazy and volatile over the past few years, and it really fucking affects the mood. We're in a revolutionary space because we're coming up to energetics that are just like when the United States appealed for and fought for like freedom and individuality and sovereignty. And we're at a similar node again because the planets are in a similar position and it affects our mood. The moon affects our mood. Tides.
Seemingly, yeah, really,
it's
truly.
funny, yeah. And we can't say that. And the Kabbalah has made it so that it's laughable, which to me is really delicious. Like anything that's powerful, anything with meaning is put in a laugh at it place. Crystals. We all laugh at hippies with crystals. Crystals are fantastic computers. Crystals are the minerals of the flowers of the mineral kingdom. But we're supposed to laugh at crystals because they're woo-woo stupid. And they're actually the most amazing, incredible things we have littered around this planet. It's crazy. We're conditioned to like laugh at or look away from things that matter or things that have power, you know. And we were talking on an earlier chat about powerful people respect astrology. The Reagans, like Ronald Reagan would be like, I'm going to sign this thing. And Nancy Reagan's like, like it's more conducive to do that like 3 days from now, or give this speech about this on this date. Yeah. Because of astrology, which is so funny because they were so Christian, but they were like, there's power in this and we see seemingly.
Yeah. Going into those royal courts, magicians and astrologers, the astrologers were magicians, basically. That's what all this is, really. And but John Dee, the lineage of Joseph Smith, I got from Kwaku. You know Kwaku, Brian?
Kwaku.
He's like an official church apologist dude, and he's kind of a funny personality that just like fights for the church. And the church, like I think Fair Mormon sponsored him or something. But anyways, Kwaku. I was just his name's Kwaku, but he just popped up and he's talking about John Dee and the ancient like magic traditions that Joseph Smith got his stuff from, and he's defending the church and mentioning this stuff. And I'm like, John Dee? I had never really looked into John Dee. I think I'd heard the name. So I was like, okay, is there something here? And I started looking into Joseph Smith's connection with John Dee, who was the Victorian royal courts magician. Okay. And what he did was he had this like really creepy buddy who was kind of like the scryer, right? He had his ears that had been cut off, and he was just like this creepy like magic dude that could like see spirits and talk with spirits, right? So they channeled together, kind of Joseph Smith, Oliver Cowdery partner up, kind of like that, a scrying team, where one of them basically was scrying and talking to the spirits through these black obsidian mirrors. But anyways, it gets really creepy actually if you really look into them. But they because they were the royal kind of magicians, but they ended up getting pretty dark at the end, dude. Like if you look into that whole John Dee thing, but they did translate or channel the Enochian tablets. So their method of communicating with angels is called Enochian magic, like Enoch, which I don't even know. That's what they say. Probably, yeah. So that's the same lineage as Joseph Smith's family. So like this kind of like these traditions, this kind of a deep little rabbit hole twister to get why all this planetary magic bullshit is like relevant to Mormonism.
Yeah, and I wonder about that heritage. And this, as long as we're going to get into the origins of Mormonism a little bit, because there's something I want to say here, but real quick before I do, just inserting one last thought from astrology to kind of tie it all together. J.P. Morgan Chase, you know, the guy who runs like Chase Banks and all that shit, was quoted to have, or said years ago, like I think when he was still alive, millionaires don't use astrology, but billionaires do. And it's kind of sums up what Alex was saying about how people in power that have the real power try to make it all look like hookah puka to the rest of us so that they can basically keep the power for themselves. And so, and I got a feeling like, I mean, I feel like you see the same symptom in the Mormon church. You know, I don't know how prominent it was with Joseph Smith, because there's a lot of additional research to suggest that Joseph Smith actually wasn't that interested in Masonry and let Brigham Young and Heber J. Grant and the rest of the Masons do their thing. And he's like, yeah, I'll join. He joined, you know, but like he never necessarily took it seriously. And it's possible that Brigham Young was the one that like inserted all the endowment Masonry symbols and shit. And that was never any of Joseph Smith's doing.
All the people around Joseph Smith, though, were Royal Arch, the highest level of Freemason. His uncles, his dad, his Oliver Cowdery.
I don't think his dad was Royal Arch. I think his dad was a member. I don't know when he joined, but
I looked into this whole Royal Arch thing because they had the Melchizedek priesthood long before Mormons had it. So I was looking into that, like, okay, who had it? Who gave this to Joseph? Really?
If you've got any good documentation or articles or anything on Joseph Smith's father's connection with Masonry, I would really be interested in seeing it, because I'd really like to get my story straight on this one, because I swore I've read things recently that basically was like that Joseph Smith and his father, they did join, but they never took it seriously. Like, at least maybe that's wrong. What I do know though is Brigham Young and Heber J. Grant, or not Heber J. Grant, Heber C. Kimball. I think it was Heber. Yeah, the two of them were like super, super into Masonry. And Heber in particular had like connections. And so, and I think that the narrative of Mormonism kind of paints this picture, or tells the story a little bit more itself. Like if you look at the Kirkland Temple, there's really not a lot to do with Masonry and the symbolism anywhere in the Kirkland Temple. If you look at the Nauvoo Temple, we don't have much from the original Nauvoo Temple, but from what we've read or what we've heard, again, not a lot. But then if you look at the Salt Lake Temple, there's Masonry all over that fucking thing. So, you know, I can't say for sure, but maybe at the very least, the emphasis on Masonic involvement in the church definitely escalated as soon as Brigham Young took over, isolated the saints, and basically got to do, because I mean, if the church isn't true, like obviously Brigham Young would have had a completely different agenda than Joseph Smith would have. I mean, it would have been totally different, you know. So thoughts, please. You know, I'm just spitballing here, you guys, but like I feel such a shift once the Saints got to Salt Lake City, isolated with Brigham Young. You know, I feel like there was so much whitewash, and if you study history at the very least, they whitewashed. Brigham Young and company whitewashed a lot of shit that Joseph Smith said. Brigham Young threw Emma Smith under the bus. For a prophet of God, he really hated that woman. Maybe because that woman was calling out his lies, but like he really hated her.
Okay,
well. Oh, go for it.
Okay, I was just going to mention real quick. I'm just going to throw this in there because if you look at the history of the Smith family, they had family heirlooms that they passed on to their family, right? One of them was like a sacrificial dagger. Like, what? And it said all this crazy magic shit from Planetary Magic. Yeah. Also, if you look at the Salem witch trials, we all were taught about the Salem witch trials, I believe. Everybody knows, like, oh, yeah, that's the time they were accusing all those, like, 14-year-old girls of being witches and just having a heyday burning all these girls. And saying everybody was witches. It was like this craze that happened in Salem, Massachusetts. Well, Samuel Smith, one of the accusers that had that all go down, was also the great grandfather of Joseph Smith. So to understand his family lineage and who they were in power for a long time in the United States before Joseph Smith, and they were also like doing all kinds of crazy shit. So like just like crazy scares and just a bunch of shenanigans the whole time, like Salem witchcraft. But you start to look at that. Also, like Joseph Smith died with his Jupiter talisman on him. If that's all authentic, that's all sideshow planetary magic as well. This goes into that stuff.
Oh no, I'm not trying to say he wasn't into that shit. I'm just implying that I think Joseph Smith was a better magician than Brigham Young. I don't think Brigham Young was hardly a magician at all. I think that what Brigham Young did was hijack the energy of the church. He saw what Joseph Smith was creating. Brigham Young was to Joseph Smith what Thomas Edison was to Nikola Tesla, basically, is what I'm trying to say. Like, he had the genius and he had the cunning and he could see the vision of what the other guy was doing, installed the whole fucking thing for himself and took all the credit. Like, you know, at least until the truth started coming out years later, and now people are coming back to Tesla. But I really feel that that's the best way I can compare them, is that Smith had the vision, he had the magic, he had the energy, he had all of it. And Brigham Young was the servant from the devil. He was sent probably by like the devil, like the Masonic institutions, to investigate, see what the fuck Joseph Smith was doing, become one of his best friends, and hijack the church. Like, that's sort of, I can't prove that, but honestly, that is my current theory, is that he was a pretender, and the Masonic influence, at the very least, it really blooms and manifests in Salt Lake City with that temple. It's written all over it.
Brian, could I
serve to? I'll go for it.
What?
Oh, Alex, I want to hand it off to you real quick. I want to say, guys, I really think it's important that we all watch that thing on Netflix called "Stay Sweet, Pray and Obey," and that just came out, and that's like all about Warren Jeff's deep dive. Like, it shows everything. It's the craziest shit I've ever seen in my life, and it's so Mormon, it's ridiculous. It's like the original Mormonism.
Yeah,
but it's like a deep look into all those wives, all the secret chambers, all the crazy brainwashing. It's insane, and it's on Netflix right now. I just watched it in one night. It was like 5 episodes. I was like, "Fuck it, this is."
Should I put it above under the banner of heaven in my queue, or should I watch that one first and this one next?
Both of those are so important for history. They just cannonballed the historical record with all the Mormon facts and the craziest fucking expose, more shit than I've ever even heard of. With the polygamist sex, they're the original. This is how Joseph Smith intended the temple. It was a place to take girls' virginity. Like, whoa, that is fucking.
And again, I'm not sure about the Smith thing. Brigham Young might have altered that history to sort of plant Smith in that image in order to. But
okay,
but
I agree. I'm open-minded, but
I'm open too. I'm just saying I'm ambiguous about it right now. But it definitely happened from Young on. Might have been Smith. Definitely from Young on. Jury's out, but I'm with you.
Totally could have been hijacked. The entire system that Smith made. Also, there's a secret society behind it. So any receipts that we have could have been planted there. That's why it makes it so tricky to really know what happened. But go ahead, Alex. Yeah. Me and Brian have been taking the airwaves. Sorry, Alex, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, it definitely pull Under the Banner of Heaven up in queue, because you will see in that show some of that interplay between Joseph Smith and Brigham Young. You'll see the difference, because the show takes place in the 80s and they're solving a string of murders in the 80s based on real events. And this is true in the book and in the show, they keep going back to very pivotal moments that are not very glamorous or flattering for the LDS church. And you have some Joseph Smith scenes, Joseph Smith with Emma scenes, Brigham Young scenes, Brigham Young in Salt Lake scenes. And it really does sort of, the collective consciousness is starting to take note of differences between Joseph Smith and Brigham Young. Brigham Young definitely was that like malignant narcissist megalomaniac. And then Joseph Smith was, had more heart, but was still a character. But
he was more balanced, sorry.
Yeah, and that's what I was getting at. And I'm dying to watch Stay Sweet, but I had to take a breather between Under the Banner of Heaven and Stay Sweet. I'm like, I can only get triggered so much. So
I see Joseph Smith as like the guy that like dreamed up McDonald's, this magic man that's like, I want everybody in this world to have a good hamburger. And then I see Brigham Young as like the manager of McDonald's today.
That's not a bad analogy either, dude.
Maybe not the manager today. That's the Mormons today, but
Ray Kroc. He was Ray Kroc, who was the guy that took over McDonald's and changed everything.
Something like the Bob's Burger. Yeah.
Yeah, Bob's Burgers becoming like a multinational. It's funny though, because again, I jury's out with Smith. Like, coming back to something you said earlier about trying to walk with both the wisdom of Solomon, walking with both angels and with devils. Like, I literally could compare Joseph Smith to that. Whereas with Brigham Young, I just see devil, 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 devil. Like I don't, the sky is this angels. So I'm not here to excuse some of the things that, in the historical record, it seems that Joseph Smith did or said. I convincing people like that a church. I think what happened to him is he evolved in his esoteric nature. He was so obsessed with the esoteric. I think his conscience started to get to him later in life, and he was trying to slowly reconcile the church with like the new revelations that he had, but it just got away from him. It got too big. It fed his ego too much, and it was probably too late for him. But I do feel benevolent energy coming from that source in a way I don't feel from Brigham Young, even though they both did seem to have that darkness inside of them as well. That's really how I'd highlight the difference between them. And a lot of people find that hard to accept, that someone can look at someone like Joseph Smith as both a devil and an angel. But I would assert that it's possible in the same way that you mentioned Solomon, So a little bit of contemplation going on here. What?
Yeah, there's something to be said about it for sure. I definitely I'm taking it in. We're covering a lot of topics, so my head's bouncing around.
Sure.
I get real deep on one. I'm like, I can't leave this, and then I jump on the next one, or I jump off that one to try to get deep on the next one in my own mind. But yeah, it'd be great to structure the. Even though this conversation is really incredible, like we could take a clip out of this and really make a nice like short on these different topics that we just kind of go into real quick. But anyway, sorry to reel it back so much into. But what were we just talking about? Could you remind me? Because we just covered
Joseph Smith, Brigham Young, demonic energy, origins of the church. Here's a question I could pose to you guys.
Yeah, what a trip.
What? And this is something that like I'm still trying to figure out, but like, where the fuck did the Book of Mormon come from? Because you can't convince me that he dictated that from like a non-magical perspective. Like, I can't bring myself to believe that. It doesn't. I just don't think it's possible.
Okay. So this is how it all.
That impressive.
Really?
The 1826 deposition where Joseph Smith was in court with what's his face? I don't know. He was treasure digging, right? And I guess the stories were that he was like sacrificing. First, it was like a black dog or a black sheep or something, having it walking around in circles. And the story that he originally had with his seer stones and all this stuff, because he would find the seer stone, he would like remote view them and see it under, and he would dig and find a stone and be like, "This is what I saw." And then the treasures would get slippery. So he'd talk about slippery treasures. Well, the treasure would slip into the earth. They would dig after it. It would keep slipping more and more. And to stop that, because each treasure had a treasure guardian spirit, and it was Native American, right? So it was a Native American treasure guardian spirit, and it demanded these sacrifices or these. Joseph Smith was basically trying to appease the spirits while he was like trying to dig for these treasures, or at least make the show of it, so that because this was a culture, he wasn't the only one kind of doing this kind of wild. Hire a psychic to find a buried treasure in your yard of this new land we're in, But there was others. There was like a little culture of that. But I'm talking about the evolution into Moroni and what the Book of Mormon is. You look at the evolution of that treasure guardian turning into Moroni, and then the treasure itself turning into the golden plates. It's an evolution, just like SpaceCouch.
Right.
Throwing spaghetti noodles at the wall to see what sticks. What do people like? They're just con men. I mean, really. I mean, ultimately. I mean, I don't want to say con men, but
I think Joseph Smith started out that way. I think he did. Yeah. I think he was like, "Whoops! I actually created something with magic here." Like at some point, he was like, "Ruh-roh."
Well, you have all the sources of the Book of Mormon, like the late war. So those guys, the Johnson brothers, they used Google like plagiarism checks basically and said, okay, search before 1830 and basically put the Book of Mormon and did a plagiarism check. And all these other books came up, like speeches by, So we've basically found that like the Book of Mormon is like stitched together a shit ton of plagiarism pieces of different stories. So... and then
is the official narrative lying to us though? Did he not dictate the whole thing and have it just scribed down improv, because that's the part where I'm like, even the best authors don't do it in one go. You know, that's the thing where I'm just like, was there a channeling of some sort?
Well, that'd be interesting to think about. I mean, the thing that broke the shelf for me was finding out that huge swaths of Isaiah, like KJV version, ends up in Second Nephi, right? So he's like,
oh yeah,
I gotta fill this fucking shit with volume. So, look, they brought Isaiah over too, and it mattered for reasons. And then you can see the same mistakes they made in 1600 England translation wise appear in the Book of Mormon, and it came to pass shows up 9 trillion times. So to me, there are indicators that he can shoot from the hip real good, which is like a good salesman and a good con man can kind of do that. And it's like, and I think he was well read, very intelligent, very like big mind, and like what. But I can see him just shooting from the hip to make this fucker come together, because it's not like that. Like, I would read it and I'm just like, I'm bored as fuck, and the story is like trite and stupid, and it just kind of flims out. It's flim flam. I don't know. I look
not
at it
the
and
most
I'm like,
advanced thing.
I could pull this out my ass in 2 months.
See, and I'm not so sure. Like, let me just say this though. Like, first of all, I'm not suggesting that it was divinely inspired by any sort of one true God at all. Like, but you got to understand, like, I'm reacquainting myself with games on like Magic and shit. You know, like, you begin to realize that like not deities, but like demigods from the other side, intelligent entities from the other side, they're not fucking perfect either. I'm suggesting that he had help is all. Like, not that he wasn't brilliant, but like when I look at that, I just can't conceive like one try. Like, if he had like months to write, like a year to write it, and he could edit it and change it, that'd be fine. But the stories, it was dictated, like just one and done. That's the part where I'm like, there's plagiarism to make it easier. But I think he had some sort of otherworldly help, like not divine, but channeling, assistance from some entity. I don't fucking know, but yeah, that's sort of my theory.
Okay, so going into that, we're under the impression that he was a farm boy, 14 years old. He couldn't have done anything himself, right? That's the narrative that we have ingrained into us. But in reality, if you do look into his world, he is surrounded by Royal Arch Freemasons. So there was some sort of societal help going on in the secret society. And this goes through everything, I believe, but I'm sure it shifted and changed over. We have the 11 witnesses, his own family. These guys are connected as fuck, and this is early America. So how could they do this? They had a bunch of people in on it, basically.
Oh, I want to know so bad. Like, I really do want to know what actually happened. I want to know.
Yeah, because I mean, think of politicians today, where you get some heavily funded Republican or Democrat, but they're running in Middle America, and they're like, "I'm a folksy farm guy with my gun, pew pew," and you're just like, "No, you're fucking not. No, you're not. You privileged little son of bankers. Like, fuck off. Like, you just moved to Kansas a year ago, and now you're a resident. Now you're running for Congress or something." You get what I mean? Like, but as someone who I do automatic writing, like, I will sit there and just like my fingers fly, and I'm like, someone's dictating, because what was written is more intelligent than what I can do. But I also think that I have that faculty open. So I'm actually, I don't know, Brian, you are kind of convincing me that maybe Joseph Smith could have been open to some sort of influence in pulling words
when you consider
stuff together.
When you consider a non-divine source, you'll open yourself up to like, okay, just something, you know, like most people are just so binary with it. And I really try not to be, because I really think the mystery is to sort of escape the binary and look at the infinite possibilities. And I go, well, on one hand, there's all this plagiarism, but on the other hand, this doesn't make sense either. So if neither of those extremes make sense, then the answer's got to be somewhere in the middle. Like, you know, the more I study the occult, the more I'm just like, oh, that's possible. And that's possible too. And that's I got to consider that. So yeah.
So I have the instruction manuals if you guys want to try out this scrying thing and actually see if we can contact Morona and be like, yo, what the fuck is all this shit? Please tell us. So we're going to basically have to get some obsidian mirrors. Or we could probably get our own seer stones, right? And then you have all this sigil magic we're gonna have to do, like by the power of Venus and Saturn, and at their planetary hours. There's like recipes for all this shit, right? And then we might I don't want to sacrifice any animals, but I'll sacrifice like a papaya and get the juice to be like the blood for me, because I think I want to keep it kind of G-rated, just as like a mock up. Like, what the fuck is going on, guys? Let's look at this.
Instead of blood, we'll use clamato juice.
Yeah, I mean,
per se.
I went to Jerusalem, guys. I went to Israel, trekked Israel. I'm like this. What's going on by myself? Going through Islamic neighborhoods, and these little kids are popping up out of the bushes, like fake killing me. I'm just like, oh god. But yeah. Oh yeah, BYU Center in Jerusalem is totally a mind fuck. But yeah, Jerusalem. I forgot what I was gonna say about Jerusalem. Shit. Oh yeah, Jerusalem was a trippy place to go. Though I was just like, I just went and just like licked the rocks. Like, what is this Disney World?
You say licked the rocks?
Pretty much. I was just like, I just sat there with Jerusalem for, I don't know, a couple weeks, just sitting there. I sat in the middle of all those rabbis at the wall going like this. I sat there in the middle of them all chanting like all the Hebrew stuff. I sat there.
So bizarre.
Yeah.
So
I went everywhere.
They're all programmed with their own little software. Like, someone's inserted this code, and like really breaking the matrix is a great metaphor for what it really is. Like, you have to break your programming. You have to.
Yeah.
My favorite part
is. What's your favorite part?
I was going to say my favorite part of Jerusalem was this mental illness called Jerusalem syndrome, that people have wristbands that you'll meet on the streets in the hostels that are cheap. They're like $15 a night, so I'm like living in there, meeting people from all around the world, going on their pilgrimage to Jerusalem, and but there's all these guys that hang around, and they all look like Jesus, and they like wear clothes like Jesus, and there are a whole bunch of them. It's called Jerusalem syndrome, and it's people think that they're the messiahs. So there's a whole bunch of them, a whole fucking bunch of messiahs. It's really interesting, and they're all just like really charming and just like smoke weed. Just like they're pretty funny hippies. They just a lot of them are Jews, but and then they get free food because they're one of those guys, but they also get injected with Coptic salts, I heard, to mellow them out when they're going into like their rapture. But that's bizarre. Pretty bizarre, something I just saw while I was smoking weed, because there was a guy there. He was telling me about it. Like, oh yeah, see those guys right there? And those, I was like, you got to be kidding me. There's like techno Jesus. We could have like a huge club of all the Jesuses coming to unite as one. Like, you have the techno expert Jesus, it's like DJing, and then you have like the construction Jesus. It's like really good at bulldozers. I don't know. Just
this
every
is kind of feel a little Rick and Morty like to me.
I mean, I don't know. Trying to have a good attitude about it. Because
you better to make fun of it
and have a playful attitude. Because if you're looking around, you're like, I'm looking at ritual I don't understand. Yeah.
Yeah, to me, it's like, if you don't think you're Luke Skywalker, if you don't think that you are the chosen one, then to me, I was like, that's kind of boring if you don't think that. It's like, come on. The whole point is like, you are the chosen one. Like, that's the point of all these myths and stuff.
But the genius is that it doesn't. Everybody can be. That's the thing. Like, it's like the whole point of the Matrix, the one, was basically to say that like anyone can break free, anyone can be the one. Like, you are the one in your own world. You really are. And honestly, when you meet the one, it's just if you get your ego out of the way, like, as long as it's not competitive to you, you can work in tandem and create more harmony and more joy and have it gets even better. Is the point? It's not like I got to be better than you. It's just we all break free, and then we live in this. Basically, that's where harmony is,
And everyone has a hero's journey. Everyone logged into the hologram has a hero's journey, and we're all. So there's no like the captain, right? But there is a certain, I agree with you all, where there's a certain amount of like, if you don't see yourself as special, perceive yourself as special, and perceive like your experience as special, you're a little too boring for me, and you need to step aside and go the fuck over there. Or there's a Kardashian on the TV. Go watch
Yeah.
that. Like, get the fuck out of my way. Like, I'm kind of with you guys, like, where I think we're past the age of, right? Where it's just also like the cool kids in school organically knew to come together, and they were like shits a bit, but I feel like we're in a similar zone where it's like a clique can form, a club can form, and not necessarily of secret combinations, but like
open conversation, not secret combinations, but open conversations. Like, that's what I'm trying to do myself.
Round tables.
Like, wow, if I spend the rest of my life looking into this stuff, I'm never going to learn it all, and I'm going to be like by myself. And like, why not learn it together, like with everybody one time? Because that's all we have. Like, I don't have time to learn it and then come back. It's going to be too late.
Well, like for me, compare notes, right?
Yeah, let's compare notes. It's time. Like,
well, now you're thinking a little too third dimensionally. You're not thinking fourth dimensionally. Technically speaking, you could be like, you know what, that was great, and I gotta feel like I want to do my final run, but I want to be born in the 70s this time. Or I want to be born in the 90s this time, or like, and I'm not saying like I'm with you when it comes to like I want this to be my last ride. If I can find a way to like work it all out this time, and like unless I could come back and remember, that would be my caveat. I don't want to forget again. I'm so fucking sick of forgetting. I feel like my soul, like if I'm connected to my soul, if I was to tap into it, like I'm so sick and tired of forgetting in order to go through the experience again. Like that part, I just feel like, like I want a new way. I want to remember everything that I once was formerly. I want to remember who I am. And this is the big kicker, a big kicker to all of this, you guys, is it like, as we wake up as a species, like, I suppose it's like Alex, you know, had a past life, you know, of being a murdered Playboy playmate. Like, assuming that's true, and I'm inclined to believe it is, that how much more accumulation from lives before that, and lives that you've had, Jim, and lives that I've had, like, our soul, like when it's funny, we were taught as Mormons that our spirits were like 1,000,000 years old, and when we die, we would slowly begin to remember all the things that we forgot. Well, isn't 1,000 different lifetimes just living for 1,000,000 years in a different way? So there's the same form of remembering when you die. There's the same form of like, oh yeah, like old acquaintances you knew before you were born, maybe from different star systems, you know, wherever we're from, we'll all go back to, supposedly. All of that. I just feel like it would make such a big difference if we, while we had this experience, could remember who we are. And I get that part of the contract for coming here was probably, you got to forget, it's part of the game, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, even Monopoly has house rules, and pretty much everybody that lands on free parking gets to take the money in the middle. Like, that just sort of became a thing because we all sort of collectively, universally agreed it was better this way. Well, I'm fucking hoping that remembering who we were before we came to Earth can become the free parking of the Earth game, and we'll all just sort of adopt it as a new rule, and we can change sort of the interface here. Because I think we have a better experience at this point.
And I think that's the theme for this specific incarnation. You're in, I'm in, we're all in, especially this little ragtag group. I think we're coming out of an age where the veil was thick, and it was a good idea for then, and we're done with it. And it's time to either thin the veil or get rid of the veil.
Dismantle it, yeah.
Yeah, because I think you are supposed to come to you're supposed to come to an incarnation. The reincarnation matrix is not a bad thing, but the Earth version is super fucked up. And we're here to fix that by way of our intent, our free will, and just making choices. But as I'm unpacking the murder Playboy playmate thing, there's other lifetimes that are like super weird. But I have 3 prominent figures: Josephus in antiquity, a Spanish writer named Fernando de Rojas, who wrote La Celestina, and then Dorothy Stratton, this murdered Playboy playmate. They're really different. 3 completely, like, who has ever put those 3 together in any like conversation ever? No one, me. And then as I'm unpacking my like oversoul's journey, I'm like, oh, well, actually, I see threads between them all. And I think that's going to be the hottest new fashion on an awakened Earth, is everyone who chooses to stay on Earth and not like log out. And I feel like a lot of people like want to log out, like, oh fuck it, too much, bye. And it's like, all right, well, bye. But those who stay by way of their choice, we're gonna be on this journey where it's now fashionable to be like, who are you? Oh my God, you won't believe it. I was Cleopatra. I was a French milkmaid. I was, Genghis Khan. And you're like, whoa, like that's crazy. But then you'll get a sense of like, I have a sense of who you are. And it doesn't have to be prominent people, but you could be like, oh, I get a sense of you, your personality, your soul, your journey by way of these characters that you logged in as. Because it's like logging in with Mortal Kombat. And you're like, which one am I now? Am I the lady with saw blades for hands? Or am I the ogre? Or I don't know. I didn't really play the game. But I understand the basic framework. I watched people play the game while I wished I was somewhere else. But I think it's a similar thing. And I think we bring that back into fashion. And kind of like the movie They Live. Remember that at the end where they like tear down the frequency thing and then all of a sudden everyone could see the billboard said a thing. The reptilians were walking around and all of a sudden it was just like, oh fuck, I can't unsee.
Hey, what's wrong, baby?
Yeah, exactly.
The guy's like fucking.
And then she sees it, she's fucking a monster. And I think we're at that same flashpoint. And it's not necessarily like there's a frequency thing that we have to go turn off. But I do think we just stop agreeing to the veil. And I think we have the veil because I think we were at Atlantis and we were at a point where Atlantis were to ascend or Atlantis were to fall. And we explored the Atlantis falls path because when you're locked in and like you're fifth dimensional or fifth density as opposed to like third density, fear's not real. Like you can do a fearful thing, but it's like being logged into, it's like going to the cinema. Like to be mugged in the parking lot at the cinema is infinitely more terrifying than to go see a horror movie at the cinema. Because the horror movie is fake and you're like, well, oh, that was scary, but that was a scary suggestion, but I'm in the cinema, I'm safe. And we kind of agreed to this veil, in my opinion, because we really wanted to understand fear, consciousness, subjugation, all these like crazy things. And they become real when you really, like when death is final, like shit's real. You know what I mean? But when death isn't final, you get to play space battles because you're just like, whatever, I'll just log back in again. It's a video game. I don't fucking care. And so
as long as I can remember, that's the caveat. Yeah. That's what I want.
Well, I think we're back out of that now. So like we've done everything that fear consciousness is like outlived its usefulness. We're reclaiming these things, and as we reclaim them, we now hold our memories.
Going into encouragement consciousness, like, hey, don't you like when you love people, they naturally are loyal to you if you love them. Like that's just how that works.
Yeah,
and they do better work than if you're like slave. Hey, if you don't do what I say, I'm going to punish you. That doesn't work. So that's the different two systems that we're going into. And also, Alex, I was going to talk about the progression of the equinoxes and how Moses and Solomon really symbolize the age of Aries that we just came out of into Pisces, which is Jesus, and that's almost over right now. And we're going into Aquarius in the year 2160, I believe. But every age is 2,160 years, and that's when they started our calendar. And we started on a 12-month calendar, and really the natural division is 13, which is kind of wild because the natural division of the lunar calendar is 13. So 12 is kind of like kind of dismantles something, but we're talking about a new boot disc for humanity and something where people can be born and they can be like, hey, this is an actual guide. Remember who you are. This is it. Boom. It's huge. Bam. Give them the pill. If they want the whole pill, when they're like, here's the whole history. Bam. No manipulation. No agenda for you to like somehow serve us. Just like because we want to see you be okay and have a good time while you're here in this incarnation. Plus, we got a lot of work to do. Look at all these crazy problems we have around the world, stuff like that. So it's like no agenda to like now that you have been initiated. It's like come on, enough of that stuff. Like
I'm tired of that shit.
Yeah, it's just like now now you're going to clean our bathrooms and do a bunch of slave labor for us, basically, because you're our congregation. We're going to hoard your tithing, and you're also going to just give us your money, and you're going to be good little slaves and do what you're told. And then anybody that is born in your family that wakes up, they're going to have hell to pay. And so, yeah, for me, my whole life is just like, you guys wanted to see hell. You guys rubbed me the wrong way so badly. Just the entire situation that it's turned me into like a little crazy, like person on fire. Like I am on fire and I'm swimming in hell. Hello. I must be a demon then in myself, even though I'm not, but I'm what they call a bodhisattva. Somebody's just like, fuck it, I'm going to take responsibility for it. I was living in a very celestial sphere, and I was just like, fuck it, I want to go wild and go to the very bottom, see the very bottom, and then help pull it all up. And that's what bodhisattva's work is. Basically, is like, just go get your hands dirty and go. That's what life's all about. Being a bodhisattva. So a lot of cool people will mention like bodhisattva stuff, but yeah, it just I forget. I don't know how I got into the bodhisattva stuff, but man, these tangents. Yeah, go ahead.
But I vibe with that because it's like Kali Yuga, Satya Yuga, like a descension and then ascension, and then that bodhisattva like descends into the muck of it and then helps lift. Like rising tide lifts all boats, right? Like helps bring it back up. And I almost think that's an old soul thing. I wonder if the three of us, I wonder this about myself because I have serpentine dragony consciousness. I have some, we keep like shitting on reptilians and I'm like, I got some hybridness happening here, so I don't know what. And funny enough, like Brian and I talk about like devils, right? And I can't help but like kind of like be impressed with devilish
Me too.
chicanery and fuckery. Because I'm like, well, like, I think your lie is creative and you managed to manipulate a guy into believing your lie. So part of me is just like, good for you. So part of me wonders if like, did we have past lives where we were devilish and we've explored that track. And now, unlike the devilish people we see in power, we are evolved beyond that. So we're coming back to a storyline we've been logged into a long time ago. And we're back again, but this time we're back as reformers because we've walked that dark path, or we've had dark incarnations or negative polarized incarnations. And we're just like, I tried that. It was futile. It's not my jam. Basically, I'm saying, are we reformed demons is like my question. It's something I wonder with some of us.
I have a good answer with the story for that. And that
Please.
Goes to, I was at a Dark Star Orchestra event in Boulder, Colorado, and I had just come out of the mountains, and I was doing a bunch of peyote ceremonies with the Indian tribes up there with my friends. And so these guys, these hippies, their pupils were all huge. And I was like, well, what are you guys on? You guys look like totally fucking out of your minds. And they're just like, whoa, like aliens, And I was like, and they're like, oh, it's some kind of synthetic mescaline. I was like, oh, yeah? Can I try? And, and he squirts it right in my mouth. And I wasn't saying like right now, but he's like, here, open your mouth. And he's like, I just give you about 2 strong doses. So I'm like, 2 strong doses? Damn it. All right. And what's it called again? He's like, anyways, I went and had the craziest vision of my life. And I went to the surface of the sun, and there's Diablos. I went to heaven and hell and all this stuff. And I made a lot of realizations. In Lamborghini, and my family is like Benz and Studebaker, Swiss side. So we were car makers. So it's kind of part of my soul, engineering a car. So I'm having this crazy hallucination, and there's like a red carpet that rolls out with all the Lamborghinis, all the finest engineers and mechanics and stuff, and they're all proud of their work. And I'm hanging out with them. I'm just like, oh my God, this is the coolest thing. I'm just like amazed by all the handcraft. But then the Lamborghini gets stolen by the Diablos, they reverse engineered for the purposes of hell and shit like that. And then Lamborghini Diablo, that kind of feeling of like, wow, all of our hard work has just been stolen by the devil and turned against us, like the internet or like whatever it might be. And so, but anyways, to make that long story short, I came to a hopeless pit of despair. There was a zombie apocalypse on Earth. Everyone's in hazmat suits. This is years and years ago too, way before all this COVID shit. That's why I was like, I saw this in a vision a long time ago.
Shit.
And it just came to a really hopeless despair. Like everyone was so hungry that these dogs in this junkyard were jumping in, and just before this thing of meat was even in the air, it was gone by all the dogs just inhaling it. They were so hungry in this junkyard. I'm sitting there in the pit of this, and then Tinkerbell fucking comes in. Marilyn Monroe comes out of like this like fucking like, it's like when the film strip breaks and it's like super white, way whiter than everything else. And then out of that comes Marilyn Monroe, and it's like everything is okay, and you are loved more than you could ever imagine. Because I was on this pit of like, is it all bad or is it going to be okay? Is it all bad or is it going to be okay? And then fucking Tinkerbell came and like cheered me up like greatly, and then I ended up giving my deer antlers to this gas man at like 5 a.m. I was like laying in an apartment complex the whole night. So, anyways. That's a trippy story, but I was going to get into like what I think good and evil really is. It's just good is just intelligence, and evil is just the lack of intelligence.
Yes, I would use the word wisdom actually instead of intelligence, but I completely agree with you.
And an angel is just a demon that got wise and like figured out karma and was like, oh shit.
Yes, dude, this was going to be my final thought. Like you're fucking nailing it for me. It's what I was saying earlier. Once you figure out how the game works, like all angels are too nice and all devils are too mean. And if you just learn to balance yourself and walk that path, you literally like, and it's intelligence, it's wisdom, it's figuring it out with both your head and your heart and everything working in tandem and being like, oh, this is the best way to get what I want without anything boomeranging back to get me in my ass later. Like, it's different than good and evil. It transcends good and evil. You transcend the duality with wisdom, and you realize that you don't have to ultimately harm anybody that didn't deserve it, at least. If you walk that path of give and take just right. It's simple. It's logical. And it feels right too, you know, all of it. So some of us might be reformed devils. Some of us might be reformed angels, you know, finding that middle path, getting to that place where, you know, and what I mean by that is that some of us may have had more evil incarnations at first because maybe we were naturally too good, or maybe we were just naturally too evil, and so we had a bunch of good incarnations until we figured it, whatever had to bring us into that balance. You know what I mean? To figure out that you're going to resent yourself. You're going to develop self-resentment no matter what, if you take too much or if you give too much.
Yeah, so, karma has a natural way of the Tao. Whenever you get into non-duality, you take a step back from good and evil. You take a step back from that, and just realize that whatever you do, good or evil, it's going to happen exactly as hard right back at you. So if you're good, or if you punch, it's like punching yourself in the face. Like,
yeah, it doesn't always come right away. Sometimes the delay can manifest in a different form, but it'll show up.
If you steal something, you're just stealing from your own pocket, because really it just comes back around. It fucks up your life, your energetics. If you become a klepto or something, if you're stealing from people and being dishonest, you're ruining your own vibe, your own life. So just naturally, the karma of whatever you're doing, if it's good or evil, will come back. And so you really, whatever you do to the universe, it happens. If you're nice to the universe will be nice to you. Help, you'll be helped. Stuff like that. So that's what duality and the wisdom of duality really is. So like, I mean, it'd be nice definitely to bring that into the just kind of like the new programming of just like, hey, this is what, you know, this is the new boot disk or whatever, you know, like the new ABCs, you know, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. This shit is crazy over here. Check it out. And then, you know, because I think it is time, like you guys are saying, like you guys are basically saying that, and that's basically what I guess SpaceCouch is. It's like, hey, let's put it all on the table so you could see it all and cartoonize it, make it into a thing that everybody can understand.
Make it digestible.
Game shows, Jeopardy, like have a bunch of people that never heard about it before all learn about some, like Wilford Woodruff did what all together while we're playing Jeopardy in like a fun setting. Just slide that right in there into the collective consciousness, and then get people talking. Like, because I think a few more series, whenever Mormons realize there's like 20 series about their culture and history that's all accurate historical information, it's like totally like bombshell, eventually the whole culture is going to be like, fuck, what do we do? And then they're going to have to basically, I think they have to. What we're up against is basically Saturn, Jupiter conjunction. We're in the court of Saturn and Jupiter combined. So that's a big ass planet. But this is all David and Goliath all over again, and we're all Goliath. Or no, we're all David.
Yeah.
We're these little tiny we're these little tiny specks. But it's just like, it's just that shit all over again. It's just we're playing roles. And hopefully we can do it without a whole bunch of fallout.
Oh, we totally will. I think it's craziness on the TV and our local reality. You literally walk outside and you're like, shit's okay. Like, shit's okay. And I think as we, like you just said, like really revisit the fundamentals or rewrite the fundamentals, how we perceive this realm, how we perceive each other in this realm. This realm is very mirror-like. It's prismatic. So if you punch, it comes right back, right? And as you put out, that's the thing you get, and that dictates the timeline you're on. And you can fizzle out, or you can go to the moon, or you can do whatever you want. And if humans are given that basically permission slip to explore their magical side, to embark on their hero's journey, to look at this realm through a fresh lens, because you can walk your cul-de-sac and have it be the most boring event of your life or the most magical event of your life, just depending on your perception and filters. I think this world goes from like crazy in 2022 to just a few years later, Star Trek style. I don't think it's that, like, I think when we give ourselves permission to indulge this and open up our inner possibilities, shit changes, and shit changes quick. Humans are just too creative and too optimistic to just die in oblivion. Like, we should be dead. We were actually in an unlikely timeline. In 1967, a plane was flying over South Carolina and dropped a nuclear bomb on South Carolina. It didn't go off. What do you mean, like, it didn't go off? Like, we literally accidentally nuked ourselves, but the nuke never went off. So think about that. Like, that possibility is so infinitesimally small that we already, just by that virtue of that action alone, we live in a timeline that shouldn't exist.
We're free rolling, as poker would call it. You're free rolling now. Like you should be done, but you're not. And so it feels like you've just been given like
done, but you're not. Yeah.
That's how it is. Like in tournament, like when you suck out on another player when you should be eliminated. Some people will joke like, well, I guess I'm free rolling now. Like I should be done, but clearly I'm not. So at that point, anything that happens is just like, all win and no loss. So yeah, that's what it sounds like to me. I don't know, man. Like this, I'm just content to be here at the moment and watch the wheels turn and see how it unfolds. I'm going to want to unpack a lot more. Like we'll have to circle back to some of the more Mormon shit. I want to talk about the second endowment next time. I want to talk about
second anointing, right? And
the second anointing.
Is there a third anointing, or has
that's some shit I might want to unpack. Like I'll come prepared for that one. But no, again, I'm going to keep studying the Saturnic connection. Like this is intriguing. And if I could ask Jim one last question for you, what would be the best? Do you have a link you could send me or anything specifically that would help me understand the connection between the Saturnic stuff and Mormonism? Is there anybody or anything specifically that delves into those links specifically? I mean, I'm trying to put things together myself, clearly, but I wonder if anyone else has done some of that preliminary legwork. I can't think
of anyone at the intersection of that.
I don't know myself, which is why I thought I'd ask. And you can kick it around. You don't have to give me an answer now, but I'd be intrigued. Like if that's uncharted territory, I might have to start putting strings together myself.
Okay, so there is, yes, there is stuff. Okay, so you're going to need to look into John Dee's connection with Joseph Smith, and that's where you're going to find different people are going to be talking about it.
Can you send me a good link in your spare time?
But that's not to Saturn specifically, though. But eventually, if you look into the angels, the seven angels, Raphael, Gabriel, whatever, Samuel, it's all L, right? They're all Saturnic, like moons. They're all Saturnian angels. So so let's see.
But yeah, dude, you could just you can kick it around. Like I said, you can throw me a link or two in your spare time, any starting point.
Sure.
Now that I'm done with your other Yellow Brick Road, I've got a few things. I've got a few things bookmarked. I still need to finish, but I've got it mostly all ordered and cleaned up. So I'm ready for the next piece. In the interim, what?
What do you think I should do with that Yellow Brick Road? I think I should clean it up for sure, but I think it'd be cool to put together a playlist that's just start here, and then it just takes you through it.
Yeah, I might be able to help you with that in the future. My recommendation would be just to leave things the way they are now. Kick some ideas around, and as this grows organically, you can revisit that
also,
and make it more palatable.
A lot of the presentations got really just a little bit too crazy for appropriate dinner conversation, so I took those off. But there's a whole bunch, dude. I have you're sitting if there was a meme with the iceberg of what's going on, that's it's, I guess you're getting down the middle,
yeah, we'll figure it out.
Yeah,
there's a lot of shit out there, dude. But this has been a good kind of stimulating conversation. I've got your things linked. The two big things I got out of this were, as far as research, I'm going to check out Stay, Sweeten, Pray, and Obey at some point. And I also Googled the past Saturn rings Reddit board. I'm going to look at that as soon as I get off the call here, and I'll let you know what I think.
Oh, cool. Also, you could also just watch all that on double speed. I mean, I didn't do that because I had kind of time to absorb it, but those that Hulu series, you could watch them both on double speed, even because if we could all understand those two movies, I really think that would be something relevant to right now. And there's a lot of people going to Reddit what the fuck is this movie? Should I watch it? People looking it up, and so I think if we have just a discussion about the impact of that to our culture, what's really going to what this is leading to if this continues, this interest into what really happened in Mormon history, if this, and I think it'll avalanche into this this other dimension. So yeah, but yeah,
cool, dude.
I think we're on the right path. Anyways, thanks for joining today. I want to put the logo on the front this time. I want to make a cool intro.
Yeah, sounds good. I'm looking forward to seeing it, dude. I'll catch you on Telegram on the other side, and we'll collaborate again in a week or so, probably.
All right. Cool. Later, Alex. Alex is gone. All right.
Yeah, we're good, man.
Yeah.
Peace out.
All right.